Hi everybody, another video for this weekend. Planning to do a bit of painting actually this weekend, so I'm going for a shorter game hopefully today. I've got a few days off as well, so hoping to make some progress on painting some more bases for my various different guard units, trying to fill in a few gaps for my Napoleonic Guard. So we thought we'd play a bit of Augustus to Aurelian today. We're going to do for a mid-Imperial civil war, Western Roman army against an Eastern Roman army, and we'll just do a bit of a view of the two forces. I'll follow in a second. Starting off with the Eastern Roman army, this is based on a Palmyran army led by Queen Zenobia that revolted against Roman rule in the mid-2030s, I think it was, AD. Let's just have a look. We've got this organised into 5 divisions. Firstly, a Palmyran division. Sorry about the fingers. And we've got some Palmyran archers. They're on 3 figures to a base, and then we've got some skirmishers, 2 figures to a base. Then we've got some auxiliary infantry armed with spears and more Persian style shields. We use those as Palmyran infantry, otherwise heavily armed in and equipped in the Roman style, in chainmail. I think those figures are pretty much all in. And we move back, we've got Queen Zenobia herself and advisors. That'll be our Army General command stand. Then we have 2 divisions of lights, 2 divisions of cavalry, a light division, some skirmishers, nomadic Arabian, then 2 units of camel infantry. Depending on the rules, the second unit counts as camel cataphracts. Unusual concept, not really sure how effective they were, but the figures are great, so gotta have some camels if it's an Eastern Roman army. And they're supported by a 2nd cavalry division with a unit of lights, and then 2 units of cataphracts. This one's a Palmyran cataphracts, and there's the general figures commanding those. And we move across to that Eastern Roman allies. We've got a division of skirmishers here. It's not skirmishers, auxiliaries. Equipment quite similar to Roman legionaries by this time. They're wearing chainmail with reasonable large shields. Pilum, depending on what source you read, was transitioning out at this sort of time, so front 2 units are in mail, the back 2 units are lights with no armour. Sometimes play them as unarmoured legionaries as well, those ones. Again, that division's got some skirmish support. And the final 5th division, a heavier division, with legionaries fighting for the Eastern Roman Empire, with a nice command stand. And then we've got 4 bases. I use each base as a cohort in these rules. 4 bases of legionaries, and again, if you look at these, a nice mixture of equipment, some in scale, some in segmented armour. The legionaries, take these ones as legionaries, have got pilum. And then we've got a unit of auxiliary Syrian archers. And on the other flank, again being an Eastern Roman army, got a nice unit of clubmen and another unit of archers. Let's take a nice look at the clubmen. Again, they're nice figures. And some baggage, got to have some baggage at the rear. So that will be the force fighting for Palmyra and Queen Zenobia as the Eastern Roman army. Now take a look at the Western Roman army. Again, some similar units. I've got some light cavalry. Some more javelin armed light cavalry. And some horse archers. Supported by some Roman medium cavalry. Again, really nice figures. These are mainly A and A figures. Four units of legionaries. All the figures were done with, I think it was LBM transfers from memory. Command stand for the Western Roman Emperor. He's got a unit I use as his Praetorian Guard. And some light troops as well. Some mercenary warband allies. As you can see, these are actually early Saxons, so possibly a little bit late, but I just tend to use them as warband allies in the Roman army. His legionary force, I think I might have just shown you these ones. And then finally a third small division, smaller unit of legionaries. I think those shields are the shields designed from the archaeology. I'm trying to remember which city in Syria when they actually found an intact Roman shield with its artwork still on it. Anyway, there is the Western Roman army. We'll see where the Charlie plays Western or Eastern Empire. Hope you enjoy the game. We'll get on with setup and then crack on with the game. Cheers. Alright, we've completed deployment and Charlie, as Emperor of the West, has got first turn. We'll just look at his deployment. He's gone for a heavy cavalry formation on his left wing. He has a large cavalry division, 3 units of lights, including 1 of horse archers. His cavalry general there, and then 2 units of medium Roman cavalry. Then we move across and we've got his Praetorians fronted by skirmishers and light Lancari holding his central position. He has ballistas, 1 there and 1 in the top of the tower that fronts the centre of his position. And then we move to a very strong infantry heavy right wing where we have his legionary heavy division. We'll just see it here. And then finally he has another unit of auxiliaries and then barbarians far out on his right flank. So as we look at it, it's an overall view of Charlie's deployment. And facing off against that, we can see he's got a bit of an open flank. So the Palmyrans have gone for a denser formation. Their left wing starts off with a auxiliary division, a very strong centre with 2 units of cataphracti cavalry, and the Palmyrans heavy infantry and their legion in the centre, and then the Palmyran auxiliary forces on their right flank. So we've got cavalry against auxiliaries. In the centre, we've got legionaries and Praetorian Guard against the bulk of the Palmyran heavy armour. And then we've got an open left flank for the Palmyrans to manage. We'll see how the game goes. We'll get on with turn 1. At the end of turn 1, we've seen a general advance by Charlie's cavalry force on his left wing. They've taken some arrow fire and taken a few casualties from the Palmyran archers, who are pretty good. Over in the centre, the main Eastern army has started advancing its legionaries but refused its front to slightly to the right due to the approach of the Roman heavy cavalry. And then as we look to the left, we've got a general advance going on by Charlie's army as they try and outflank the left-hand side of the Eastern Roman army's position. And unfortunately for the Eastern Roman army, neither its cataphracts or its left flank were activated last turn, so suffering from not getting their activation counters pulled. Alright, let's crack on with turn 2, Charlie, see where we go. We are at the beginning of turn 3. We've seen some action on this right-hand Palmyran flank. The Palmyran archers have knocked out and forced to flee one of the units of light cavalry that was facing off against them. All Roman cavalry tried to charge. They all took morale tests to do their charges. The 2 units of heavy cavalry couldn't summon up the enthusiasm to charge the formed enemy to the flank. The light cavalry went in against the archers, and the combat has been drawn. So cavalry just still waiting and pinning the right flank of the Palmyran army here. As we go into the centre, we had an early end of turn counter pull, so I used a couple of my leader tokens to trigger the activation of 2 of my divisions before the second end of turn counter was pulled, which formally ends the turn. That allowed me to redeploy my my auxiliaries on the left flank and start moving my cataphracts forward. Otherwise, Charlie remains pretty much on the defensive, waiting for my charges to come in on this flank. On we go with turn 3, is it, Charlie?
Yep.
Yep, on we go with turn 3. Okay, we just completed combat at the end of turn 3, and quite a lot of movement on this flank. Charlie charged home again with another unit of cavalry, and he's now engaged in a standoff against the Palestinian clubmen. His light cavalry fell back after combat, but did succeed in wiping out the Palmyran archers they were fighting. So the Palmyran archers fell back off the table, and the cavalry themselves retired. So still fairly fluid on this flank. In the centre, as I say, the turn came to a halt very early in its phase this time, so no real movement on the left-hand flank. But Charlie's skirmishers actually caused 2 units of the Eastern Legionary main division to become shaken, and one of them has indeed broken. Otherwise, not much went on in turn 3. On we'll go with turn 4. An eventful turn 5. Still no combat's gone in. Again, the turn ended reasonably early. The cataphracts are moving up and starting to pepper the enemy line with their skirmish screen. The barbarians continuing their flanking move, and some of the auxilia on that far flank have started to come up in support. As we swing around across the rest of the battlefield, the main attack by the Eastern Army has taken a lot of casualties from the Western Army's skirmishers and ballista fire, and it's now lost no less than 3, I think, of the 7 attacking units in that division, so 1 more in that brigade is broken, so they need to get a move on. And their forlorn hope, their flanking force on the right flank has just approached the table, but Charlie's just ignoring them at the moment, and they've got a long way to go before they come into the action. That's 3 units of light cavalry for the Eastern Army, 2 units of camel cavalry, and 1 unit of horse skirmishers. So we'll see how turn 6 plays out as we go on to the next turn. Alright, some serious developments at the end of that turn. So the robust defence of this flank by the Palmyran auxiliaries has withstood the attack, and the cavalry division now had one of its heavy cavalry units or medium cavalry units break. It's now fled or is fleeing, and that led to the whole brigade fleeing, as that was the 3rd unit in that formation of 5 to be shaken. So they're all on retire orders, and indeed those skirmishers will go on to retire this turn. However, unfortunately for the Eastern Romans, the main assault in the centre has also gone a bit pear-shaped. We've now got this whole brigade on retire orders, because again the combines from the skirmishers and the 2 ballistas have picked off another couple of units this turn, supported by some javelin throwing from that cavalry division that we've seen pulling back. And again, the turn ended very quickly, so none of the flanking units were able to get activated. So we'll see where we go next turn. The Eastern Romans might have a chance to rally this formation with some expeditious use of rally chits and stabilise the front here again and see if the cataphracts can go in and if the flank attack can do any good. Charlie is basically just going to refuse the flank and use the tower as the cornerstone of his defence. So we'll see if he can pull that off as we approach turn 7, I think. We've done the movement and orders at the start of turn 8. A further light cavalry unit has failed its shaken test at the end of last turn, so the Roman cavalry on this flank is now just 3 units, all on retire orders. The camel cavalry has realised it is in bow range, so it's providing at least some fire support to keep driving those Roman broken units off the table, and there are no generals with any order counters able and ready to rally them, so they look like they'll keep on going. In the centre, the Palmerians are down to only 2 units now, having lost their 2 units of archers, and I think are probably just going to stay in that defensive position. They may edge forward a little bit in the game. In the centre, as we predicted, we expended a whole welter of big man tokens, Magnus Fury tokens, and took a bunch of casualties of these Roman legionary units. And this legionary assault is they're now not shaken and are advancing again towards a more hollowed out centre of the Western Roman formation. Still very much in the balance here. The main assault by the Easterners has now gone in, so we did pass successful leadership tests and triggered Magnus Fury action to trigger this division right at the start of the turn. So the cataphracti have charged in against the auxiliaries, and the second unit of cataphracti managed to roll a 5 and has also charged in against those praetorians. Both took a single casualty from incoming fire as they charged home, and this shaken unit at least has moved up to provide a bit of a screen and protection to the heavier Roman infantry as it advances to protect it from that ballista and those skirmishers. However, on the left flank, things still look very good for the Western Romans. They now look like they've pretty much outflanked this Eastern Roman auxiliary division, and I can imagine those attacks will go in next turn. The final Western Brigade is just keeps not getting orders and is somewhat isolated there on the edge of the board. So some pivotal combats, see if the cataphracti can break the legionnaires this turn. That would be probably the key combat of this game. See if we can smash the centre, in which case the Easterners could be on to victory. If they're thrown back, I think the fragility of their heavy brigade here will wither under repeated skirmisher and ballista fire and probably grind to a halt. Right, on we go. I think turn 8 or 9. Right, we've just completed movement and orders on turn 10. Things have hotted up on the left flank here. Finally, the barbarian infantry has got into charge range and charged into the flank of this auxiliary unit. The Western Roman legionaries have charged home against the 2 units of auxiliaries. We'll see how that plays through. And they have support now moving up. And in the centre, the charge went in by the Contos wielding cataphracts. Praetorian guards stood their ground. They decided it was their day to fight rather than run, and held back the charge of the cataphracti. But the light legionaries stroke auxiliary broke under the weight of the cataphracti charge last turn. As we move across, the second unit of Praetorians has also decided it's now time to have a go, and they launch themselves against the first unit of that Eastern Roman division that has reformed itself and thrown itself against the Praetorians and against the tower. This really is the crunch turn. So we move across to the remainder of this final flank. It's all over for the Western Romans here. They've only got 1 unit of light cavalry fleeing. The Palmerian auxiliaries are indeed now moving forward to protect the flank of their legionary brothers. And the Palmerian camel cavalry is also finally moving. I think much too late to join the game. It's still got a fair way to go to get into the rear of the Eastern European army, and I think it'll be decided as to whether the Praetorians can hold their ground or the Eastern Romans are victorious. On we go. with the next turn. Right, we're at the end of turn 10, just about to play turn 11, and yeah, I'm not sure where we go from here. We may call it. I'll probably play one more turn. Charlie has decided that he's had enough for the day, so we'll probably just finish it off. He's given me his final orders for the game. Over on this far left flank, the barbarians charged home and did ridiculously badly. They rolled 7, 8, 9s and 10s. And only caused 1 casualty to the skirmishers and 1 casualty to the light auxiliary. The auxiliary in return did a casualty each back. The skirmishers failed their break test because they were at their break point, but the barbarians did not win the combat. As we move across, the legionnaires hit the auxiliary line and did well, certainly did well in one of the combats, and just churned through the first unit of auxiliaries. So this attack looks healthy, and I'm sure now we have 3 units of barbarians and 3 units of auxiliaries and legionaries. They'll churn through this left flank. So this looks very much a victory for the Western Romans. Let's move into the centre. It's sort of less clear. The Praetorians did manage to throw back their unit of cataphracti. They are at a break point, so with their light cavalry brethren again taking another casualty and fleeing again, the Eastern European division is now on a retire order, but we have got some command points, so we should be able to bring a casualty back and stabilise them in a second. And the Praetorians have taken a lot of damage. As we noted last turn, the light unit has gone, but these Praetorians are on 3 casualties, and these other unit of Praetorians are on 3 casualties, so both of them only 1 point away from their break points. So a very weak centre, and facing off against the weak centre, a very weak Eastern Roman heavy division. They have taken the tower, as you can see, and knocked out the ballista, which is a great result, but they lost a unit when the Praetorians charged in, and again there are quite a lot of casualties on these units in the ground, and they're only one more pip away from having to retire themselves. And on the right flank, it's all over. The Palmyran auxiliaries own the field, and the camel cavalry have knocked off the remaining medium and light cavalry units, just that one left there. So the Easterners have the right flank, the Westerners have the left flank. The Easterners have captured this woe-begotten tower in the middle of the desert, and the heart of both armies has been ripped out of one another. I think it's probably a matter of retiring gracefully. The Praetorians teetering on the edge, the Easterner heavy division teetering on the edge, and the cataphracts also having to retire. We'll play one more turn, just to see whether either side can make a breakthrough. Cheers. We're going to call it there. We are going to call it a draw. This left flank actually still hanging on just about in there, but is about to collapse. The left-hand light auxiliaries are now surrounded, and they did well, again held off both those attacking cohort and the attacking barbarians this turn, and the combat was a draw, but took a 1-inch step back, but passed their shaken test. The other cohort of auxiliaries was pushed back by the legionnaires, but not in a decisive way, so they'll have to push in again next turn. The cataphracts in the centre have recovered a whole bunch of casualties as they're using up their leadership tokens to get themselves back into some sort of form, so the cataphracts are no longer withdrawing, but again they're taking casualties from the 2 ballistas and the skirmishers, and I don't think are going to be able to push it through on their own. Otherwise, the Praetorians have sort of pulled back a bit and recovered a couple of casualties, and similarly the remnants of the divisions in the centre. So I think the Eastern Europeans will claim a glorious victory as they've recaptured their tower in the desert, and their cataphracti have of course serious damage against the Praetorians, but time to leave the field now, try and recover at least an element of their left wing and pull their right wing back while they have the capacity, whereas the Western Empire troops will also claim victory. They held off the charge of the cataphracti. They may have lost the tower, but they've still got three substantial divisions in play. The Praetorians have survived, and they can gradually push their way up the board and probably recover the tower, given enough turns. So all in all, as dusk falls, a really nicely balanced game. I really enjoyed playing it. Charlie did too, till the lure of the iPad overcame him. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. We'll just do a last flyby of the table, and see you again next time. See you next time.